Hello, folks. It was a heck of a day on Thursday. Well, it's now Friday, and it's Friends and Family Only Friday, FAFO. Look for fire and brimstone coming out of Washington, D.C. after the conduct of Cyril Ramaphosa at the G20 Summit in South Africa. Shocking, the things going on. In response to a completely baseless claim and misleading statement by Ramaphosa intending to give the impression the United States and backtrack and would now attend the G20 Summit, which was not the case at all. The note verbal said the U.S. would send a delegation after the conference to accept the handover, but not participate in it. And Cyril Ramaphosa tried to turn it into something that it wasn't, and he was called out by the spokesman for the White House. That would be Caroline Leavitt. Now, it appears the media are trying to make more out of this than it is, but South Africa is really treading on some dangerous ground here, insulting the United States and in clear disrespect and ignoring the Vienna Conventions about diplomacy. South Africa is behaving in a fashion that is not going to put them in a good light. According to news reports, Pretoria sets the terms for U.S. return. Well, the U.S. is not trying to return and says no to junior delegation at G20 handover. South Africa is said to be insulted by the U.S. decision to send a junior diplomat to the G20 presidency handover. A junior diplomat. You want to talk about insulting? Mark Dillard came from the private sector and still served nearly 3 decades in diplomatic postings all over the planet, including South Korea, Malawi, Japan, the DRC, Bulgaria, France, Hungary, Kenya, and South Africa. Hardly a junior diplomat. That's a very insulting thing to say. He's also the chargé d'affaires, and he's been chargé d'affaires previously in other missions. You don't become chargé d'affaires responsible for the actions of our embassy in coordination with host nation when there's an absence of an ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary just because you're there. You're put in that position because you have the experience and gravitas to pull it off. Now, presidency spokesman Vincent Magwenya says the president won't hand over to a chargé. Well, okay. Well, just ignore diplomatic norms, state-to-state relations. That is the person representing the United States in South Africa. And if you refuse to acknowledge or accept the person representing the United States in South Africa, this is a serious breach of diplomatic protocol under the Vienna Convention. Reports say that Pretoria is pushing back against the decision by Washington to send its chargé d'affaires Mark Dillard to hand over ceremony during the Leaders' Summit. Actually, it's the end of the summit. It's not during the summit. The Sunday Times claims that they understand communication was sent to Minister of International Relations Cooperation Ron Lamola this week by the U.S. Embassy, and I've seen a copy of that document. The notice Pretoria came after the U.S. note verbal, which had warned Pretoria against making any declaration without the U.S. You can't make a consensus declaration when 5 countries aren't there, or their leaders aren't there. And that's what the U.S. said. Now, that's portrayed by the South African government, by the media in South Africa, as a threat. It's not a threat. It's a obligation under diplomacy to send a note verbal to explain why you're not there and also explain your position, which they did. Now, the support staff for Dillard would include Stephanie Bunce, Ariana Saylor, Rubani Trimmu, Jeffrey Landison, Victoria King, David Schneider, and Heather Wright. They're all staffers from the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria. High-ranking officials told the Sunday Times that South Africa had taken offense over the decision by the U.S. to send a junior diplomat. Well, those high-ranking officials have no concept of diplomacy. This is not a junior diplomat. That's an incredibly insulting comment directed towards the United States and towards Mr. Dillard, who's a very senior diplomat and will likely be an ambassador after this posting. Now, they claim Pretoria was pushing back against it, that the International Relations Department was engaging with the U.S. Embassy. It's not something we're going to entertain because the president can't hand over to an embassy official. These people are insulting us, and we are still measured in our public pronouncement, and the reason we are measured is because we understand that this process is bigger than one country. But you don't understand diplomacy or the Vienna Conventions. And this is a major insult and a clear breach of diplomatic norms, insulting the chargé d'affaires like this. There's no need for that. Simply say that your expectation was that the president of the United States would come and you can't hand over to anyone else. Other countries are not represented by their senior political official. China isn't represented. Russia, Argentina, Mexico. None of them are represented by their senior leaders. And you're not insulting them. This is not going to go well for South Africa. This is a major breach of diplomatic norms, and this is problematic. Problematic. This forest fire, this conflagration started in earnest on the 16th of November when Donny O'Sullivan's misinformation, white genocide, CNN hack piece against President Trump featured the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Director of International Relations Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, calling Donald Trump a white supremacist in America, a white supremacist effort with the refugee program. That's what torched this whole situation. And since then, South Africa's just made it worse. Ramaphosa running around when some journalist says, you won't be bullied. Instead of saying, what are you talking about? Nobody's bullying us. We're a sovereign nation. The United States is a sovereign nation. We have a disagreement on what's going on here. That's not bullying. That's what he should have said. But he said, no, we're not going to be bullied. Yeah, just stoking the flames, stoking the flames. And it just continues. This is sad. This is the implosion of South Africa. And if they think they look good on the world stage, they're really, really not reading the room. For all the Trump haters out there, those who understand diplomacy and those who understand state-to-state relations, get that this is beyond the pale. It's not acceptable. And it wasn't inappropriate for the United States to send the charge d'affaires. We don't have an ambassador there. We're still waiting for Congress to confirm Ambassador Bozell. And we've already seen the arrogant, asshattery, racist comments from senior ANC officials about Mr. Bozell, the ambassador designate, basically calling him a racist. We've seen that already. This is not good. Good luck. This is a forest fire that is not going to go out anytime soon.